Now, the Scottish Government's controversial named person scheme is to be scrapped. It became law in 2014 but has attracted a campaign of opposition ever since. So what exactly is it? Under the scheme, detailed within the Children and Young People Scotland Act 2014, every single child from birth to 18 was to be given an adult who they could turn to for advice, help or support. In most cases, that person would have been a social worker, health worker or teacher. Their job would be to help that child access services in need and help families with concerns. They would also receive information from other organisations or professionals like GPs if it was believed to be in the best interests of the child. But this provoked criticisms about privacy, serious overreach of the state and concerns that it undermined the family. A snooper's charter, said critics. In 2017, campaigners took it to the Supreme Court, which ruled parts of the scheme did breach the right to privacy under European human rights. Since then, Education Secretary John Swinney has tried to suggest changes, but MSPs failed to support them. Here's more from our political correspondent, Lindsay Buse.
The plan was for every child in Scotland to have a named professional, such as a health visitor or teacher, to look out for their welfare. The named person scheme was due to be rolled out in 2016, but was hit by delays, and today the government has changed course.
I believe that today we have taken an important step forward in providing families and practitioners with certainty about how information sharing can support well-being in a transparent way which respects the rights of everyone. The mandatory named person scheme for every child, underpinned by law, will now not happen.
The named person scheme is the most deeply unpopular, the most illiberal and the most unworkable policy of modern times. And I think the Scottish Government should apologise to all the people who've had to go through so many different hoops in the last 5 years to try to make it workable.
The scheme was delayed after it was challenged in the courts by opponents. They branded it a snooper's charter.
Lord Hodge will explain the decision of the court.
The UK Supreme Court ruled part of the plan breached human rights laws. Ministers vowed to make changes through legislation, but now that's been withdrawn.
I'm pleased that finally the government has kind of thrown in the towel on that one. It was a breach of confidentiality of parents. It was calling for indiscriminate information sharing without consent across a whole range of people and services. And it actually was, as the Supreme Court said, a breach of human rights.
But those views weren't shared by everyone, including these parents.
It's like a safety net, really. I mean, taking that away is it's not beneficial for either the child or the teachers.
I think anybody had children would want one point of contact.
The government says that existing voluntary schemes to safeguard the welfare of children will continue. Lindsay Buse, BBC News, Edinburgh.
Well, Alison Preuss is from the Scottish Home Education Forum, who has campaigned against this scheme, and she's in our Dundee newsroom. Alison, thanks very much for speaking to us this evening. First of all, you were instrumental in taking this campaign to the Supreme Court. Just remind us of your issues with the policy.
Well, yes, I was involved in the No to NP coalition, which sought judicial review, and finally it happened in 2016. It actually wasn't 2017, it was 3 and a bit years ago, not 2 years ago. We were very, very concerned about the lowering of the threshold for intervention in family and children's lives well below the child protection threshold, which has been well established for many years. We felt it was widening the net. It was building a bigger haystack in which to try and find tiny needles. It was originally sold as a single point of contact for people who wanted to voluntarily engage with a named person. You know, there was never any problem with that idea. There wouldn't have been a court case if that had been the case, but it was the fact that it became mandatory that was the problem. The information sharing breached the Human Rights Act, it breached the Data Protection Act, and the threshold was unfortunately lowered unilaterally 6.5 years ago in 2013 by the GERFEC team in government, and the Information Commissioner didn't see fit to prevent that happening.
Can you just explain a little bit more about, we were talking about, you just said breaches of data protection, and we're talking about privacy. I mean, what does that actually look like in practical terms? I mean, what were complaints that you've been hearing from parents about their privacy? I mean, what would that actually look like?
Yeah, well, I've dealt with several today, in fact, probably half a dozen. Parents are finding that their information has been gathered without their knowledge. Their children have been asked questions in school about their home lives, which really has nothing to do with child protection. People are very, very concerned when they do subject access requests and get access to their records that the wrong information is in there. They can't change it. It's impossible to go around all the authorities and try to make complaints, because what they're finding is they're either sent round in a circular route, playing past the parcel with every single regulator and complaints processor, or else they may as well just head straight for the brick wall, because there is no way to actually stop this happening.
Okay.
In fact,
sorry to interrupt, but I mean, when you're saying things like, the teachers are asking children about their home lives, many people would think, well, that's okay. And I mean, when the Scottish Government are coming to say, they've said all along that they've got the best interests of children at heart. I mean, many people watching might be thinking, how can anyone oppose a policy that at its heart seeks to protect the most vulnerable children in our society?
Except it's not protecting the most vulnerable children by building that bigger haystack. What it's doing is spreading the net widely and trying to compile information on every child, which is something that did happen in East Germany, and my name probably would tell you that I know something about that. This is not the way to go. Voluntary engagement is the way to go, and I'm very, very pleased that Mr. Swinney has actually agreed that is what is going to happen now. But what he must do is ensure that the threshold is reinstated so that nobody is having their information shared without consent. Nobody has a problem with consent, and child protection issues have never required consent for that information to be shared.
Okay, Alison Preuss, thank you very much indeed for giving us your time this evening.